All right, so get this. We're diving into a story today that proves truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh.
Yeah, we're talking Justin Baldoni, the actor,
Right.
the activist, the guy who launched a website that ended up leaking personal texts
Really?
between Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively.
Wow.
I know you're probably thinking,
I am.
wait, what?
Yeah.
Let's unpack how this even happened and what it means for our own privacy in this crazy digital world.
It's certainly a fascinating case.
Yeah.
You've got Baldoni, known for his work promoting social responsibility,
Right.
launching a website supposedly focused on personal growth,
Uh-huh.
and then bam, private messages from one of Hollywood's most notoriously private couples
Yeah.
end up plastered all over it.
Right. Like, talk about mixed messages. And you got to
Okay.
remember, Reynolds and Lively have gone to great lengths to protect their privacy.
Oh, yeah.
They've even been involved in legal battles over it before this whole thing even blew up.
Exactly.
Mhm.
They're very deliberate about what they share publicly,
Right.
which is why this leak is particularly interesting from a legal perspective.
Okay.
What we're potentially looking at here is a case that could define how privacy laws apply to online platforms.
Okay, so hold on. Break that down for me. How could this one case have such a big impact?
Well, because it raises the question of whether websites need our explicit permission before sharing personal information,
Okay.
even if they obtained it legally.
Hmm.
Think about it.
Yeah.
This could set a precedent that affects all of us,
Uh-huh.
not just celebrities.
Right.
We share so much online these days.
We do.
Emails, messages, photos, are those things truly protected? This case might be the one to answer that question.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about it like that.
Yeah.
So what exactly was in these texts that caused such a stir? Were they really that shocking, like some of the articles are saying?
We don't actually know the specifics of the content, and ethically, it's not really our place to speculate,
Right.
but the reaction itself is telling.
Right, like the fact that everyone's freaking out probably means it was pretty juicy, huh?
Perhaps. But what's important here is the principle.
Right.
Whether the messages were scandalous or mundane, the core issue is that they were shared without consent.
Okay.
And that brings up a whole other can of worms, the concept of digital ethics.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around a lot, but to be honest, I'm not totally clear on what it actually means.
It's basically about applying ethical principles to our online behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's about recognizing that our actions in the digital world have real-world consequences.
Right.
Think of it like this. You wouldn't walk into someone's house and start reading their mail without their permission, right?
Definitely not.
Well, in a way, that's what happened here.
Okay.
Baldoni accessed and shared private communications without the consent of the people involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a clear violation of digital ethics, regardless of his intent.
That makes total sense. It's
Yeah.
like the digital world is still the real world, and the same rules of respect and decency should apply.
Exactly. And that's why this case is so important.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront these questions and start thinking about how we can better protect ourselves and each other in the digital age.
So if Baldoni was trying to make a point about digital privacy, as he claims, did he totally miss the mark? Was this whole expose actually unethical?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
He argued that he was trying to spark a conversation about the vulnerabilities of the digital world,
Yeah.
but was this the right way to go about it?
Yeah.
And what about the public reaction? How did people respond to this whole mess?
Well, social media was on fire, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Some people were defending Baldoni, saying he was raising an important issue, but a lot of others were calling him out for hypocrisy and saying he was totally out of line. There was even backlash from other celebrities and influencers. It was
Yeah.
a total media frenzy.
And it wasn't just gossip and online chatter.
Right.
Ryan and Blake's legal team took swift and decisive action,
Oh, wow.
which tells you they're not messing around.
So what did they do? Did they sue him for, like, everything he's got?
We'll delve into the legal specifics in just a bit.
Okay.
But this is where it gets really compelling for anyone who uses the internet.
Right.
This case could actually determine the future of online privacy for all of us.
Whoa, wait. I'm not sure I'm following.
Yeah.
How could a case involving celebrities and their private messages impact everyday people like me?
Because the core issues at stake,
Okay.
consent, privacy, the responsibility of platforms, they're universal.
Okay.
The outcome of this case could set a precedent for how our own personal information is handled online. Imagine this. What if websites could just share your private messages without your permission,
Oh.
or sell your data to the highest bidder? This case might be the one to draw a line in the sand.
Okay. I am officially hooked.
Good.
Let's talk legalities.
Okay.
What exactly are Ryan and Blake alleging, and how could this impact our online lives?
Great question. To understand that, we need to take a closer look at the type of lawsuit they filed and the legal arguments being made.
Okay.
Let's dig into those next.
Okay, so let's get into the legal nitty-gritty here.
Okay.
What kind of lawsuit did Ryan and Blake file against Baldoni?
They're alleging invasion of privacy
Uh-huh.
and misappropriation of their likeness,
Okay.
which is a pretty big deal in the legal world.
Hmm.
Basically, they're arguing that Baldoni used their private information without their consent
Okay.
and for his own benefit,
Yeah.
whether that was to boost his website's traffic or gain notoriety.
And what about Baldoni's defense? He claimed he was trying to make a point about digital privacy, right?
Right.
Does that hold any water legally?
That's where it gets tricky.
Okay.
Even if his intentions were good, the law doesn't always take motive into account, especially when it comes to privacy violations.
Right.
The question is whether he had a legal right to share those messages in the first place,
Yeah.
regardless of his reasoning.
Right.
And from a legal standpoint, it doesn't look good for him.
So if they win this case, what kind of impact could that have on the internet as we know it?
It could be pretty significant.
Yeah.
It could force websites and social media platforms to be a lot more careful about how they handle user data and personal information. We might see stricter rules about consent and data sharing,
Okay.
and potentially even new laws designed to protect our privacy in the digital age.
Wow. So this case could really set a precedent for how we navigate the online world.
Absolutely. And it highlights a tension that we're all grappling with.
Okay.
The desire for connection and sharing versus the need for privacy and control over our own information.
It's like we want to be part of the online community.
Right.
But we also want to protect ourselves from the potential risks.
Yeah.
It's a tough balance.
It is. And this case really brings that struggle to the forefront.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask ourselves, how much are we willing to share? And who do we trust with that information?
So what are some things we can do to be more proactive about protecting our privacy online? Is it even possible to maintain any sense of privacy in this day and age?
It's definitely not easy. But there are steps we can take.
Okay.
Start by being more mindful of what you post and share. Think before you click send or post.
Right.
Ask yourself, would I be comfortable with this information being shared publicly?
That's a good point. Sometimes I share things without really thinking about the potential consequences.
We all do it.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the moment, but it's important to remember that once something is online, it can be very difficult to control how it's shared and who sees it.
So it's like we need to be our own digital gatekeepers.
Exactly. We need to be more selective about what we share and with whom. And we need to be aware of the privacy settings on our social media accounts and other online platforms.
Right.
Take the time to understand how your information is being used and who has access to it.
It all sounds so complicated, though. Do we really need to become tech experts just to protect our privacy?
It can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. There are resources available to help us understand our digital rights and make informed choices about our online activity.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So where can people go to learn more about these resources?
There are organizations dedicated to digital privacy and security that offer guides, tips, and tools to help you navigate the online world safely.
Okay.
We'll include some links in the show notes for this deep dive.
Perfect. So while this whole situation with Baldoni, Reynolds, and Lively started out feeling kind of like a juicy Hollywood scandal,
Right.
it's actually turned into a really important conversation about digital ethics and privacy.
It has.
It's something we all need to be thinking about regardless of whether we're famous or not.
Right. It's like it started with gossip, but it's evolved into something much bigger and more relevant to all of us.
And honestly, I think it's something we should all be talking about more.
Yeah.
It's not just about celebrities and their drama. It's about how we protect ourselves and our information in a world that's becoming increasingly digital.
I completely agree. And this case, while unfortunate for those involved, could be the catalyst that leads to positive change. It could be the wake-up call we need to start taking our digital privacy more seriously.
You know, it's interesting because you mentioned earlier that we don't actually know the content of those leaked messages.
Right.
But honestly, does it even matter at this point?
That's a great question, and it brings us to another crucial aspect of this case.
Okay.
The human element.
Oh, right. We've been so focused on the legal and ethical implications that we kind of forgot that there are real people at the center of all this.
Exactly. Ryan and Blake are real people with real feelings who have been impacted by this violation of their privacy. And while it's easy to get caught up in the legal arguments and the broader societal implications, it's important to remember that there are human costs to these kinds of actions.
It's a good reminder to be mindful of the impact our actions can have on others, even in the digital world. It's easy to forget that there's a person on the other side of the screen.
Absolutely. Empathy and respect are crucial even in the digital realm.
So before we get back to the legal stuff, I think it's important to take a moment and acknowledge the very real impact this has had on Ryan and Blake's lives.
I agree.
They deserve privacy and respect regardless of their celebrity status.
Well said. It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to treat each other with dignity and respect online and offline.
Okay, so now that we've acknowledged the human side of this whole situation, I'm curious to know more about the legal specifics.
Okay.
What kind of precedent could this case set, and what kind of impact could it have on our online lives?
That's a great question, and to understand that we need to take a closer look at the specific legal arguments being made in this case.
Okay.
Let's dive into those next.
Okay. All right, so let's get back to those legal specifics.
Okay.
You mentioned that Ryan and Blake are suing for invasion of privacy and misappropriation of their likeness. What does that actually mean in plain English?
Think of it this way. Invasion of privacy basically means that someone intruded into their private affairs without permission.
Okay.
And misappropriation of likeness means that Baldoni used their names and images without their consent for his own benefit.
Right.
Basically, it's a legal no-no to profit from someone else's identity without their say-so.
So how strong is their case? Do you think they'll actually win?
It's tough to say for sure, as legal cases can be unpredictable.
Right.
However, their lawyers are making a compelling argument.
Okay.
They're basically saying that even though Ryan and Blake are public figures, they still have a reasonable expectation of privacy when it comes to their personal communications.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Just because someone's famous doesn't mean they forfeit all rights to privacy.
Exactly. And that's a key point.
Right.
Their legal team is hammering home.
Yeah.
They're arguing that this case could set a dangerous precedent, essentially giving websites and platforms free rein to exploit anyone's personal information without consequence.
What happens if they win? What kind of legal precedent would this set?
It could have a ripple effect across the internet.
Okay.
We might see new laws or regulations that require websites to get explicit consent before sharing or using personal data. It could also make it easier for everyday people to sue for privacy violations.
Okay, so this case could actually empower us to have more control over our own information online. That's actually pretty exciting.
It is. It could be a game changer for digital privacy.
Yeah.
It could force companies to be more transparent about how they collect and use our data, and it could give individuals more leverage to protect themselves from exploitation.
So beyond this one case, what are some things we can do to be more proactive about protecting our digital privacy? What are some practical steps we can take?
Well, for starters, take a look at your privacy settings on all your social media accounts.
Okay.
Do you really need to be sharing everything with everyone?
Right.
Adjust your settings to control who sees what.
I'm definitely guilty of just blindly clicking accept on those privacy updates. Maybe I need to start paying more attention.
We've all been there, but it's important to be aware of what you're agreeing to.
Yeah.
Those updates often change how your data is used and shared, so it's worth taking a few minutes to read them carefully.
What else can we do? I mean, is it even possible to be truly private online these days?
It's challenging, but not impossible.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You don't have to lock yourself in a digital bunker, but you can be smart about how you interact online.
Right.
Be mindful of what you post and share. Ask yourself, is this something I'm comfortable with being out there in the digital ether?
It's like we need to develop a sixth sense for digital self-preservation.
Exactly. Be cautious about clicking on links or downloading files from unknown sources.
Okay.
Those can be gateways for malware or phishing scams.
Right.
And consider using a VPN to encrypt your internet traffic and make it harder for others to track your activity.
Okay, these are all really practical tips. I feel like I'm actually learning something useful here.
That's what we aim for in these deep dives. It's not just about understanding the news, it's about empowering you with knowledge and actionable insights.
So this whole deep dive started with a celebrity scandal, but it's really opened my eyes to the bigger picture of digital ethics and privacy.
It has.
It's something we all need to be thinking about regardless of whether we're famous or not.
I completely agree. And the key takeaway here is that we're not powerless. We can take steps to protect ourselves and our information.
Yeah.
We can demand more transparency from companies and platforms. And we can advocate for stronger privacy laws and regulations.
This has been a wild ride. From leaked texts to legal battles to the future of the internet, we've covered a lot of ground today. What a deep dive.
And remember, this conversation doesn't end here. Keep asking questions, stay informed, and be proactive about protecting your digital privacy.
Right.
It's an ongoing journey, but it's one worth taking.
Well said. And to our listeners, I hope you found this deep dive insightful and empowering. Remember, knowledge is power, especially in the digital age. Be mindful out there and stay curious.